everybody, and welcome to Movies for Dumb Guys. I'm your host, Joe Johnson. And with me, as always, is Ryan Sharp.
We're on a mission from God.
And Tim Williams.
We are Sex Bomb, and we're here to make you think about death and get sad and stuff.
And today, in honor of some recent movies about music that have hit theaters, we are going to talk about just that. Movies about music. Not necessarily musicals. We're going to save that for another time. But we're going to talk about movies that capture how music changes lives and changes the world. And so that's going to be the focus of our podcast today.
When I listen to my records, they take me back to certain points in my life, okay? Just don't touch my records. Ever.
So the movie that inspired this particular podcast is Bohemian Rhapsody. Recently came out, the Queen and Freddie Mercury biopic starring Rami Malek. And I saw it last weekend. I thought it was absolutely fabulous. Let's take a look or listen to the trailer.
Our lead singer just quit, but then you'll need someone new.
No one will play us on the radio.
We need to get experimental.
Thunderbolt and lightning, very, very frightening me.
Do it again.
One more. How many more Galileos do you want?
Roger, there's only room in this band for one hysterical queen.
Let me go!
Mark these words. No one will play Queen.
Fortune favors the bold. No, I make music. I want to give the audience a song that they can perform.
What's the lyric?
It's on Auntie.
All right. And so, Ryan, did you get a chance to see Bohemian Rhapsody over the weekend?
I did not. I had made plans to see it on Saturday, and didn't want to ruin the experience for my Saturday experience, so I intentionally skipped it for now.
But you have a date coming up to see it, right?
Yes, I do.
Tim, you said you got a chance to see it. What were your thoughts?
Yes, I did. I enjoyed it. We talked about this a little bit before. I was just kind of surprised that they had changed so much about the actual story. At first, I was kind of like, so the story of Queen isn't strong enough on its own to not have to change a bunch of stuff around. But I kind of see why they did it, just to make it a little bit more cinematic. Mm-hmm. I mean, there's cinematic themes. I mean, they had to make it look like there was a big comeback, a big triumphant return at the end.
Right.
And then some of the other things in it. But, yeah, I really liked it. I think that the casting was fantastic for everybody, including, like, some people that I didn't know that were going to be in it, like Mike Myers and Littlefinger and people like that popped up.
Yeah, Mike Myers had a bit of a cameo as a record executive who had no faith in Queen. And neat little Easter egg there. I don't want to ruin it for anybody, but there was a moment in the film where I was like, "Aha, yeah, that's awesome." Ryan's not listening.
Oh yeah.
But no, I absolutely love this movie. When I saw that critics were giving it like a 60% positive on Rotten Tomatoes, I was a little confused because I thought the trailer looked spectacular, and I kind of judge movies by the trailer. And so when I went in, I guess the bar had been lowered based on what I saw the critics were saying about it, and I absolutely loved it. I thought it was great. Like you said, I think the performances were outstanding. I think Rami Malek is due for an Oscar nomination, maybe a win. I thought he was completely transformed into Freddie Mercury, and it was just a very authentic performance. The only thing I think that may have hurt this movie was a PG-13 rating. If you're going to tell the story of Freddie Mercury, I would think you'd have to go for an R rating. But they went with PG-13. I know the band had some oversight on this movie and kind of dictated the story. And, they made sure that they were included in, the story and how involved they were in its success, the band's success. But I was a little surprised at the PG-13 rating. I think it might have been a better movie had they gone with an R.
Unfortunately, if that was the case, I definitely don't think it would have done the numbers that it did. As far as, it exceeded expectations. It exceeded predictions big time for what they thought. I mean, first of all, I had forgotten about this, but this movie has been like 8 years or something like that to produce, and I had forgotten that Sacha Baron Cohen was originally going to be Freddie Mercury. I think that might be another reason, though, that the critics kind of trashed it. It seems like whenever a movie is well known to have a lot of problems in production, it seems like the critics automatically trash it.
Yeah, they pounce on it.
Yeah. Which this movie doesn't deserve that. I mean, it's definitely a good movie.
Now the audience rating on Rotten Tomatoes is like 90-something%. It's such a huge discrepancy.
Right, and I haven't seen anybody complain about it. Anybody that's seen it hasn't complained about it.
Right.
I mean, like I said, my minor quibble is that they decided to change the story around, but I can understand why they did it, because it's a movie. So.
Now, the other movie that recently came out that focuses on music was Ryan. You've seen the Star is Born, correct?
Have.
And what is your take on A Star is Born? The third outing, I think, of this particular movie.
It is the third outing. You are correct. I thought it was absolutely outstanding. A clear Oscar contender in my book for many different categories, from the music that was in it. It really made me appreciate Lady Gaga. Like, some of her songs have always been fine with me. I wouldn't say that I was a huge fan. I wouldn't say that I wasn't a fan, though, either. But she really got me with this. Like, I was like, wow, she's a great actress. She is very pretty in a very unique way. Her voice is just absolutely amazing.
Oh, no one questions her caliber of her voice. My God.
Well, obviously, but there's a moment and there's a song that's getting a lot of airplay right now. That Shallow song that Bradley Cooper sings in that song, and everybody's like, wow, Bradley Cooper can sing. And she kind of sings to his level for, half the song. And then there's a point where she just takes over and belts it out. And it's like, it's one of those moments that just gives you chills. And they capture that on film. Like that scene itself was just an amazing film, amazing shot. Like the cinematography of it and the way that they were able to make you feel throughout this film. It was an emotional roller coaster, ups and downs all over the place. And I want to see it again. It was a little long, and I didn't really feel it, but afterwards I was like, wow, that happened in this movie at the beginning of the movie. That seemed like so long ago. So I didn't feel like I was in the theater too long, but it felt like the stories were very long.
The same deal with Bohemian Rhapsody is it actually breezes by, but in reality it's over 2 hours long. But it does not feel like it's that long. It's when you can sit through a movie like that and not feel like you're bored at any point, that's a good sign. All right, so there's two incredible music movies in the theaters right now. So let's talk about some of the greatest movies about music ever made. Let's go to number one on my list.
Prince in his first motion picture. Before he created the music, he lived every bit of it. Purple Rain.
Now, Purple Rain came out in 1984, the year I graduated high school. And I remember going to a theater in Southfield with a couple of friends of mine. And we sat there, and the movie started, and Prince came out and started the movie with Let's Go Crazy. And as we looked around, people were on their feet. They were dancing, they were cheering, they were singing. They went absolutely nuts, like they were at a Prince concert, and I'd never seen anything like that before in a movie theater. I don't know if I've seen anything since in a movie theater. Of course, after Prince passed away, I wanted to revisit the movie. Not only did I watch it on DVD, but they re-released it in theaters, and I went to go see it in the theater again, and found myself getting a little teary-eyed at the end of the movie because of Prince's death. But the movie ends on that concert. You know, he plays like 3 songs in a row at First Avenue in Minneapolis, and it was such an amazing finale to that movie. Now, granted, the acting performances leave you a little wanting. Not the strongest acting performances. Morris Day and Jerome, yeah, they provide some comic relief. Apollonia, I don't know who decided it was a good idea to cast her in the movie. She's a beautiful woman, but
That's why.
she makes Christy Canyon look like Meryl Streep. Not a good actress, but a pretty darn entertaining movie, and I think one of the most memorable movies about music ever made. Ryan, what's your thoughts on Purple Rain?
Well, this did not make my list. I was never really a big Prince fan until I met my ex. She was crazy for Prince, so I formed an appreciation for him through her. He does have great music. The movie, when I did see it, I was younger and just didn't do anything for me. I didn't have the experience in the theater like you did, so maybe if, when the theater gets into it, the crowd gets into it, and they were jumping around and dancing and singing, like you said, that probably would have got me more involved. That probably would have been an enjoyable thing that I would have had fond memories of the movie. So I missed out on that, so didn't make my list.
Tim?
Did not make my list either. I remember watching it on cable, but wasn't a big fan of it. Even
Really?
back in the day. No.
All right.
I do like Prince's music, and I did like Prince's music, but I don't know. I just didn't care for that movie, even as a kid.
Wow.
Now, I did check out the Prince statue, and
Where's that? Minneapolis?
mhm.
Uh-huh.
And although I didn't know it, I did also walk by the spot where you got your picture taken.
By First Avenue?
Is that where it was?
The club?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I was there. I just didn't realize where I was.
Yeah. I went to Minneapolis for a conference, and I was looking for locations in Minneapolis, and I asked the concierge in the hotel, I'm like, is that club that Prince performed at around here somewhere? And he points down the street and says, see it right there? It's at the end of the street. So I walked down there, and they were getting ready for a concert, and I said, is there any way I could just come in and look around? And they said, yeah, sure. So they took me inside. I saw the stage where Prince performed and where they filmed the movie. And then I also went to the house that was featured in the movie. Apparently, Prince had bought the house before he died, and currently his estate owns the house. And so people had left flowers and mementos and everything at the house that was featured in the movie. That was kind of cool to see. I did not make it to Paisley Park. I'll have to get there next time I'm in Minneapolis. All right. I seem to have misplaced my list, so I'm just going to kind of go off memory here. Let's go to number 2 on my list. My second favorite movie about
Number 2.
music. Is it there? Is that my list?
It was.
It was.
What are you doing to it?
This is what I think of your list.
There it is. Oh, no. It says The Thing. That's not it. All right.
Let's recap.
Let's go to number 2 on my list. I saw this movie fairly recently, and by that I mean within the last few years, and I absolutely fell in love with this movie.
This is Rolling Stone magazine.
We got a couple copies of your stories.
I think you should be writing for us.
If you're going to be a true journalist, you cannot make friends with a rock star. They're going to fly you places for free. You're going to meet girls.
Rock stars have kidnapped my son.
I am a golden god!
I have to go home.
You are home.
Oh, man. Yeah, you made friends with them.
Well, it was fun.
Because they make you feel cool. And hey, I met you. You are not cool.
So, Almost Famous, written and directed by Cameron Crowe, a fictional account of his real-life experiences of being a writer for Rolling Stone magazine and going on the road with Eddie Vedder, I think it was, right? Pearl Jam. I think he went on the road with Pearl Jam.
Was it?
Yeah. Okay. And what I loved about this movie is, as I'm watching it, I'm kind of bracing myself for that downward spiral that comes in every movie, especially movies about rock and roll. I was expecting his character to get into drugs and all that stuff, and it never came. Like, there was no dark middle act in this movie. It's very uplifting. It's a very feel-good movie, and just love this movie. Absolutely love this movie. Ryan, did you ever get around to seeing Almost Famous?
Yeah, I saw it. When I saw it, there was a lot of hype about it, so that's why I went and saw it. And I don't know, I didn't really enjoy it that much. It was a decent movie. I don't know if it was because it was hyped up so much before I saw it, so my expectations were raised, and maybe that's why I didn't like it that much. But I think it's a great cast. Kate Hudson, that was like her breakout moment, but didn't make my list.
Considering you're a fan of Entourage, as am I seem to recall Entourage kind of paying tribute to it, where they ended up going to a party that had high school kids, and Vince ends up on the roof, and I think he even said the line from the movie, I believe. But yeah, it's it's a movie that people quote and pay tribute to. Tim, you ever get around to seeing Almost Famous?
I did, and kind of like Ryan, I had somebody show me the movie who was like a huge fan of it, telling me how great the movie was, and I didn't see what was so great about it. Personally, it was just one of those movies that I saw and forgot about, and I just didn't really see what the hype was about.
All right. Well, I recommend it. Go see this movie if you haven't seen it. Moving on to number 3 on my list. I'm hoping I'm not stealing Ryan's thunder here.
You'd better get bright, pal. We got a show to do. Then we got to figure out some way to collect that gate money.
Joliet, Jake, and Elwood Blues. For me and the Lord, we got an understanding. We're on a mission from God.
Are you the police?
No, ma'am. We're musicians.
The Blues Brothers. It walks the edge of almost being a musical. Some people might call this a musical because there are scenes where the characters spontaneously break out in song and dance. But it is a great movie about music. Has some of the most amazing cameos from some of the legends in music, from Aretha Franklin to Ray Charles, Cab Calloway. So many amazing performers in this movie. Great music. And then, of course, it ends on a big stage production, and just one of the greatest movies about music I think ever made. Ryan, you ever see Blues Brothers?
Orange Whip. Orange Whip. Hey, 3 Orange Whips. It's number 1 on my list. I absolutely love this movie. Karaoke this movie. I need that back. Karaoke this. Soul Man. Me and Rich used to bring the house down with our rendition of Soul Man. I quote it all the time. I talk about it all the time. It is number 1 on my list. Great movie. So many great scenes, from the mall scene to the cop cars all crashing.
Small's got everything.
Right. So, even the way it just starts out, like, takes the lighter out and throws it out the window. I guess it'll still do. Get a new lighter. Just super, super enjoyable, really cleverly written.
It's hard to pick my favorite musical number in the movie. I love when they go to Ray's Music Emporium, or whatever it's called, and they're like, the action's bad on this keyboard. He's like, there ain't nothing wrong with the action on this keyboard. And then they break out into that big choreographed dance number, and oh my God, it was just such a great moment. Tim, your thoughts on Blues Brothers?
Yeah, I like Blues Brothers, but I did not make my list because
I will fight you.
Well, I don't know why it just wasn't when I was thinking about this topic. It wasn't anything that I just wasn't thinking about them. I was just not thinking about that movie. That's the only reason why I didn't put it on there. It definitely could have made my list. It's not the frame of mind I was in when I was thinking about or when I was composing my list.
All right. Moving on to the next movie on my list. If you two want to take bathroom breaks or something, this might be a good time to do that.
Every time somebody told me I was good in my life? Twice. This race today and dance at the disco.
He's very good, yeah. He's the best.
Hey, man, he's great.
He's the king out there. John Travolta in Saturday Night Fever.
If any movie defined the 70s, the period where I grew up, became a teenager, was Saturday Night Fever. The movie came out of nowhere, and everyone wanted to be John Travolta. Everyone wanted to go out dancing, wear the wide collars and the gold chains and the tight pants and the bell bottoms.
With my
and
tight
platform
pants
shoes.
on.
Everybody's talking about my tight pants. This movie was so influential. I mean, it's hard for me to come up with a list of movies that had such a cultural impact. Like, everybody started going to the disco after Saturday Night Fever, and this movie was so huge that it eventually there was that backlash where people were like, disco sucks, and everyone started going after the Bee Gees and started going after this movie. But with the passage of time, people began to realize how great the music was, that it was funk and it was soul and a little bit of rock and roll. And one of the most influential movies about music and about nightlife and about dancing and finding yourself. Such a great movie. Either one of you want to comment on Saturday Night Fever?
I'll comment on it. It didn't make my list, but it has its place in history. It's been, everybody knows John Travolta walking down with that strut. I've even done it in a parody film. So it's iconic and definitely had its place in that time period. It might have made I didn't even think about it, to be honest, and maybe shame on me for that. It might have made my list, although this category, I felt like I could put a lot of different movies in here and rate for days. So, but I definitely won't deny its place in history.
One of the biggest soundtracks of all time. I mean, I talked about Purple Rain. That's one of the few movies that can rival the soundtrack, one of the biggest selling soundtracks of all time. Tim, your thoughts on Saturday Night Fever?
It has been a long time since I've seen it, but I've touted the excuse me. I've touted the how much I love the Oxford Theater, and then I still go to the Oxford Theater, and that's the one I used to go to as a kid because I lived 2 blocks away from it. But anyway, this in my mind is one of the first movies that I saw there. My sister must have taken me. I know they had the album, and I was a little bit too young to really appreciate the music, probably. So instead, I got Sesame Street Fever, the record, which was also a fantastic album.
Does Kermit ever say El Pacino, El Pacino? No,
I don't know if Kermit was on there. I honestly don't. I think there might have been one song that had anything to do with it, and then the rest of them were rehashes of like all their old songs. But
get in a fight with Miss
anyway.
Piggy. I don't want to dance with you.
But
all right,
easy.
But anyway, yeah, I haven't seen it since I was a kid.
Wow. All right. My fifth movie, before we go around the table, I have a list of about 10 movies here. And I'm going to throw this one in just for the sake of discussion. Now, there's a group of comedians out there, Christopher Guest, Harry Shearer, Michael McKean. They did one of the greatest music movies of all time, a mockumentary called This Is Spinal Tap. But I am not going to talk about that movie right now. I'm going to talk about a different movie those same guys did, which is not only one of my favorite music movies, but one of my favorite movies of all time.
Well, there's a puppy in the parlor and
You went to the record store, you knew that the new Folksman album would be one word title.
Itching, wishing, rambling, singing, but they had no hole in the center of the records, and
there had been abuse in my family, but it was mostly musical in nature.
The mighty winds are blowing, across the land and across the sea. It's blowing peace and freedom.
I feel ready for a voyage on this magnificent vessel.
I love Mitch.
What if we see sailfish?
A mighty wind. And its message still holds true today. A mighty wind is blowing. It's blowing you and me. I love this movie.
There's a sound drop.
I love the songs. All the songs are written by the performers and arranged by the performers, and it's such a great cast. Jane Lynch is incredible in this. I just love this movie more than this is Spinal Tap. I do love Spinal Tap, and hopefully we'll talk about that a little bit later. But if you haven't seen A Mighty Wind, it is so entertaining. I saw it in the theater when it came out and was surprised at how much I love this movie, and it might be my favorite movie of all the improv movies that this ensemble has done. Waiting for Guffman, Best in Show. I might be missing one.
There was some after this, but not as good.
But what a great movie. Ryan, I'm assuming you've never seen this movie.
How dare you?
Well, correct me if I'm wrong.
I absolutely saw this movie.
Yes, I'm proud of you.
I just didn't like it.
Did you like any of those movies, the improv movies that they did?
I didn't hate A Mighty Wind, but no, I didn't really get into it. Any of them. Spinal Tap, I didn't. That was so long. I was so young. I need to rewatch that to maybe appreciate it. Yeah, not on my list.
What number was this for you?
This is number 5 on my list.
Oh, okay. For my number 3, I have A Mighty Wind / Spinal Tap. I did not have Spinal Tap on there originally because I kind of feel the same way as you guys. I mean, I know it's a classic and it kind of set the tone for the mockumentary, but I enjoy Mighty Wind much better than Spinal Tap. A lot of people may not realize that the Folksmen were actually a skit that they had done when they hosted Saturday Night Live as Spinal Tap at one point. And then they did a mini mockumentary about the Folksmen.
The song that they performed on Saturday Night Live, this is during the 84-85 season, the song they performed, Eat at Joe's, or Old Joe's Place.
Old Joe's Place, I think it was, yeah.
And that's one of the songs featured in this film.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's pretty neat.
Yeah, and I don't know if I realized that you and I saw this movie together.
Did we?
Yeah, and I don't remember if...
I see a lot of movies.
Did we?
And I don't remember if I realized that that they were going to be, and I guess I did. I guess I did realize from the trailers that the Folksmen were going to be in it. But anyway, yeah, I really like this movie as well. And I agree with you. It's one of the, it's probably the best one out of Christopher Guest's mockumentaries.
Since we're talking about Spinal Tap, let me play the clip.
One man dares to hear the shocking answers.
It's tragic, really. He exploded on stage.
To questions like, is the world really ready for Spinal Tap? From the place where eardrums go to die, come the living legends of rock and roll lunacy. This is Spinal Tap.
These go to 11.
A lot of great quotes in that movie. All right, so that's my top 5. Ryan, what you got? What's number 1 on your list of greatest movies about music?
Well, Joe, if you've been paying attention to my earlier statements, you'd know that number 1 was Blues Brothers.
Ah, okay.
So I will be moving on now to number 2. Little movie called The Wedding Singer.
Ah, that's a good one.
Yeah,
that wasn't even on my radar, but that's my favorite Adam Sandler movie.
Down there. It's close for me, if not number 1. Great music in it. I always said that when I get married, I want to sing I Want to Grow Old with You, or have it played at least, maybe do a dance to it. I don't know, something like that. Maybe walk down the aisle with it. I don't know. We'll figure it out if that ever happens again in life. But I just classic 80s throwback, great music, great acting, funny as all get out. It's my number 2.
Drew Barrymore, absolutely adorable.
Hey, what about Drew?
She's adorable, and yeah, I met her in 1990. Oh, excuse me. Great movie. Tim, your thoughts on Wedding Singer?
I do not have The Wedding Singer on my list at all. I was a big fan of the first few Adam Sandler movies. Was this after Little Nicky?
No, this was before Little Nicky.
Okay. To me, this was when I started to not like the Adam Sandler movies.
Wow.
And
I thought
I mean, it was okay, but I liked the really goofy, stupid humor in the first one. More so than this one. Yeah. I don't know. I rented it, I watched it, and I never felt the need to watch it again.
Huh. I own it on DVD. I think it's a good pick, Ryan. What else you got?
I appreciate that.
Bring it.
Number 3 was A Star Is Born. I already talked about that.
So the recent Star Is Born cracked your list.
I'm telling you, it was my favorite movie of the year so far.
Wow.
I thought it was absolutely phenomenal. And again, so many different categories I feel are Oscar worthy. Best supporting actor was Sam Elliott. He was amazing in it. Like, I didn't even mention him before. So just, definitely a must-see movie.
You know, it's funny you mentioned that. There's a group of guys, including our director, Joey Tyzik, who does a podcast, sports talk podcast. And I was chatting with the guys before they started their latest podcast. And I said, I do a podcast about movies. And one guy, Malik, says, favorite movie of the year, Star Is Born. That surprised me. So I need to get out there and see it.
Absolutely.
I thought you saw it.
I haven't seen Star Is Born.
I haven't seen it, but I do plan on trying to catch it.
No, it's worth the price of admission.
Because I'm a huge fan of Jamie Kennedy.
Is he in it too?
Isn't he the star?
No.
You and I
Just
have had this,
looks
you
like
and I have had this discussion.
Be rad. All right.
All right. So far, so good.
All
What do
right.
you got?
This is now this is where I lose you guys.
All right.
Number 4 on my list. Don't get your button ready
I'm
because
getting my mouse on something here.
I don't want to hear about that. Number 4 for me was Straight Outta Compton.
All right.
Go ahead. Anything? No?
I do have something.
Just hit that first beat hard. All right, you cruising down the street. All right.
Cruising down the street in my 6'4".
Hey, that was dope,
You're listening to Compton's very own Ice Cube, Eazy-E, and Dr. Dre. I gotta tell you, you are witnessing history. They want NWA? Let's give them NWA. Straight out of Compton, crazy motherfucker named Ice Cube.
My nephew, who recently turned 21, he's up at Central, says this is his all-time favorite movie, period.
It was a great movie. The music in it, I mean, it's all songs you know. It's fun to see. I mean, maybe fun's the wrong word, but interesting to see the backstory, even though I knew the whole story prior to seeing the movie, just to see it all laid out in a film version. Very interesting, very entertaining. I thought they knocked it out of the park with the acting. The casting was phenomenal. Ice Cube's son played Ice Cube. So, I mean, that should have been an easy role for him to do.
He sure looked the part.
So, but everybody they got from Eazy-E to Dre, like they nailed it. And I was, just moving in my seat and happy the entire start to finish of this movie.
Tim, did you ever get around to seeing Compton?
I did not, because I liked it better the first time when it was called CB4.
That's on my list.
CB4.
CB4 is on my list.
I don't even know what that is.
I love CB4. I saw CB4 at the theater,
On
and
my
it was
list.
fantastic. And it was probably a little bit more accurate. No, I'm just kidding. I wanted to see. I don't know why I haven't.
What is CB4? I don't. That sounds like a Burt Reynolds movie.
Well, I mean, when all that gangster rap, when all that gangster rap stuff was getting big, it was when NWA was getting in trouble for the stuff they were doing. Chris Rock made a movie, and he was supposed to be Eazy-E. I mean, I guess.
It was a parody for sure.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and Phil Hartman was like the governor or mayor, and he was like banning them, and it was just
wow.
It was the same thing. It
stands for Cell Block 4.
Yeah.
Okay.
With the his song, I'm black, y'all, and I'm black, y'all,
Yeah,
and I'm blackity black, and I'm black, y'all.
Yeah.
It's a great movie.
It is. They had this. Well, I mean, the song "Sweating from My Balls" was the one that was getting them in trouble, and so they said that they couldn't play that, and then they did play it, so they got in trouble. I have it on VHS if you ever want to watch it.
I might have to check that out.
Fantastic.
Yeah,
All
Chris
right.
Rock, early Chris Rock. It's
Chris Elliott's in it too.
It's on my list.
What happened to Chris Rock's movie career? Man, he was he had a couple of good movies, and remember when he did How Much for One Red?
Yeah.
Not one order, just one red.
I'm gonna get you, sucker.
Yeah, that is his movie career. Well, he was in Grown Ups and stuff like that, but
Yeah, he's been in the Grown Ups movie.
But he did those terrible movies, like where he came back as he died and came back as the old white guy, and had to try to win over the girl that he liked or whatever. That was terrible. So
All right.
He's been in some bad ones.
Where are we on your list?
That was number 4.
Okay.
Number 5 on my list is 8 Mile.
8 Mile?
8 Mile.
8 Mile, you say?
If something's gonna happen, it needs to happen now. Did you capture it?
It's my boy Bunny Rabbit. He's a genius.
Just let it slip.
What are you doing with your life that's so great?
8 miles. Every moment is a chance to turn it around.
That was a quick clip. Yeah, so they say it wasn't Eminem's biography, but it is. But it was still really entertaining. What I love about this film is the nitty gritty of the underlying, rap battle. It really got battles like they were already a thing, but it kind of hyped it up even more, made more people start doing them. And I thought that even though it's scripted, just the way that they did the battle, especially at the end with B-Rabbit, was very creative and great. Obviously, Eminem is, lyrically, in my opinion, one of the greatest ever. He can't touch his lyrics, whether you like his music or not, which I am a fan. But just all around, super entertaining.
Yeah. Never seen it, believe it or not. I'm kind of embarrassed to admit it.
I believe it.
Usually when I'm driving on Woodward, I turn around at 9 Mile. So, Tim, your thoughts on 8 Mile?
8 Mile was okay, but I liked it better the first time when it was called Malibu's Most Wanted.
B-Rad.
Exactly, because I'm a huge Jamie Kennedy fan.
Are you a huge Jamie Kennedy fan?
I am a huge Jamie Kennedy fan.
It's funny you mentioned that because Joe and I...
yeah, we just met him recently.
Yeah, we were just hanging out with the Kennedy.
That's right.
But no, I mean, somebody showed me 8 Mile. I thought it was fine for what it was. Not a huge Eminem fan, never have been. So it was fine for what it was.
Yeah. For me to have a movie on this list, I have to love the music. And I'm with you. I'm not an Eminem music fan.
I get that. It's not for everybody, just most everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe not people that like musicals. No, but
could be a musical in its own way.
I also want to. I forgot Brittany Murphy was in that too. That makes me sad. So
yeah. That might have been one of her last movies.
It was, and actually, when she was in Detroit here filming, I guess she went to the movie theater in Sterling Heights, and I know a lot of people that worked there at the time, and they said that she was just all over everybody and sloppy and
oh really?
Yeah, it was really sad, honestly, to hear. Like everybody was kind of disappointed, and
wow.
It was kind of a prelude to what eventually happened.
Yeah. All right, so that's your top 5, Tim. Yes. What do you got on your top 5 that we haven't covered?
Well, I doubt that you guys would know this first one, but when you are a kid, when you were a 12-year-old kid, and your parents leave you alone on Saturday night, you watch a show on the USA Network called Night Flight. And that show featured this documentary that got me into this style of music. My number 1 is from 1984, a documentary movie called Another State of Mind that followed the band Social Distortion when they were first starting out on a tour with another band called Youth Brigade. And it was just, I mean, I don't want to say culture shock, but it was just an interesting look at the whole punk rock scene. And they just went on tour. And, up until that point, the news was always talking about how bad punk rock was and whatever. And then when you watch this movie, you just see that these are just regular kids just, wanting to, like, have fun and make music and whatever. Personally, I'm a bigger fan of documentaries about music than biopics because they always take liberties with the movies. Unfortunately, I find out years later when this comes out on DVD that a lot of this movie was not factual either.
Really? Was it scripted?
The guys, it wasn't scripted, but they made it look like the tour was a lot bigger than it was. They set some stuff up. That was the guys that made the film. They really had nothing to do with the bands, but Yeah, they purposely like made it look like guys were like getting into it when they really weren't. And what it was like the band Youth Brigade, I think, were doing the commentary on the DVD, and they were just like, they'd say they were in Quebec or something. They're like, that's not Quebec, that's like whatever. So yeah,
Wow.
they like, you find that out years and years later that.
I've never heard of this movie, but I will say that Social Distortion is one of my all-time favorite bands. I discovered them when I lived in California in 1990, and man, I felt like their music was speaking directly to me.
Yeah, I mean, I mean, it was when they were first starting out. I mean, they had a couple songs that you'd probably recognize, like when they were first, but I mean, not the ones that became hits or anything. But it's actually, I mean, even knowing that it's not exactly factual where they were going and things that were happening to them, it's still a good documentary, and I think you would probably like it just for the fact that you like that band.
Right, Ryan, any comments?
I wasn't even paying attention because I don't know what this movie is.
I'll send you the trailer later.
Wait, don't you have it on VHS?
I do have it on VHS.
All right, what else you got?
My number 2 is a movie that came out in 2010, directed by Edgar Wright, and that is Scott Pilgrim versus the World.
Interesting. You consider that a music movie?
I do.
How so? Elaborate.
Well, first of all, he was a bass player in the band Sex Bomb. So, I mean, basically the gist of the movie is that he's dating this girl that's got the 7 evil exes, and he had to battle them, and every one of them was a musical battle. It was his band against, they played in the Battle of the Bands. Not every one of the fights, I don't think, but a couple of the fights, maybe it was, though, I don't really remember, but I know that a lot of the fights between him and his girlfriend's exes were a battle of music between his band and their band.
I just remember Chris Evans skateboarding down the rail until he exploded. So
yeah, that part didn't have to do with the music, I don't think, but a couple of them did.
I would consider this more of a video game movie than a music movie, but
I think it's both.
Yeah,
I mean, definitely video game influence. I mean, there's no denying it. And whenever anybody explodes, they turn into coins. But
yeah, right. Ryan, did you? I assume you saw this movie. Do you agree that it's a music movie?
But it didn't. It didn't like hit home with me or anything like that. I saw it again recently, actually. Yeah, I got nothing to add.
All right.
Where's Richie Rollins when you need him?
It wasn't. It wasn't terrible or anything like that. It just. And yeah, I don't know if I think of it as a movie about music either.
Right. All right. Next.
Sex Bomb.
But
that's all I'm saying.
But I mean, as Joe Johnson would say, I'll allow it.
All right. As long as you allow it. My number 3 was Mighty Wind / Spinal Tap. My number 4 is the 1991 Val Kilmer movie, The Doors.
Yeah, I saw that come up on a lot of lists, and that was such a brilliant performance by Val Kilmer. Talk about embodying a role. He became Jim Morrison.
And
in
that movie
film.
was so huge when that came out. I mean, really. I knew some of the Doors music before that, but I mean, I'd never really bought it. But after seeing that movie, I went out and bought it.
Yeah.
Bought some of their cassette tapes.
I didn't really get into the Doors music until probably in the last few years. I started getting into classic rock and revisiting the Doors and really starting to appreciate them later. I wasn't a fan when I was younger. I didn't like the organs and all that stuff, but I've developed an appreciation for them since then.
Yeah, the Lizard King.
Yep. Brian, want to chime in here? Come on, baby, light my fire.
I saw it once when I was, again, younger because of all the hype and everybody was like, this is amazing. Thought the acting was great by Val Kilmer, but I don't know. I wasn't really into the Doors. Other than that,
I wasn't necessarily before, but after I saw the movie, I was a lot more.
Yeah,
but,
it didn't inspire me to become a fan.
I will say this: much like Bohemian Rhapsody, I thought that the way the makeup, the way they did up the band members, I mean, they just did a fantastic job of making them look like the musicians.
Yeah, everybody was I remember all the hype on this movie, but it just didn't. I think I was too young, honestly.
Yeah.
All right.
What was that? Number 4?
That was my number 4, and I apologize in advance for this one because I'm sure you guys have not seen this one either.
Don't say Godzilla.
No, I wish I would have thought of that earlier. No, this was a documentary that came out in 2012. A band called Death, and it was actually nominated for Best Documentary that year. The thing about it is it's a band about these 3 brothers from Detroit that were like huge music fans. They used to sneak in to it wasn't Kobo. What was the other like big music venue down there? I don't think it was the Grandy Ballroom, maybe. Either way, though, they saw like the Who and they saw Alice Cooper, and so they got their parents to buy them all instruments, and they were trying to get radio play and trying to get album deals, but they wouldn't. The record companies did not like their name. They didn't think they could market a band called Death back in the day. So the 2 of the band members, 2 of the brothers were like, yeah, we'll change our name, give us a record deal, but the main guy was like, nope, we're not going to compromise on this. This is our band name, and that's it.
Wow.
So years later, I want to say one of their sons or nephews is going through things and finds their albums. The lead singer, the main guy, had passed away. The other brothers had gone on to be they were in a reggae band called Lamb's Bread. But anyway, so he finds this album and he's just like, he calls his dad or uncle, I don't remember, and it's like, why did you never tell me about this band? And he's like, what are you talking about? He's like, you're talking about Lamb's Bread? He's like, no. He's like, this music. He's like, so basically, I mean, there's like, it's up for debate on the timeline of it, but basically these 3 guys created punk rock music and
never got credit, and they had no clue that they did. All right. Yeah. Never saw it.
It's a great documentary. I mean, it really is. The guys are like, I mean, just watching it, it's like, man, I'd love to just hang out with these guys, But but now because of that,
that was one of my Uber reviews. I just want to hang out with this guy.
But now because of that, they actually, I think they had some big like concert over the summer, and they were actually played down in Detroit.
Oh, wow.
With all these other bands, and I think the kid that discovered the albums is like the singer now taking place.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah.
Okay.
Check it out.
All right. One movie I thought you guys were going to bring up that you didn't was Walk the Line with Joaquin Phoenix and Johnny Cash.
That's my number 6.
Now, I would talk about that movie, but I actually prefer the parody.
Give him a minute, son. Dewey Cox needs to think about his entire life before he plays.
Hi, my name's Dewey Cox, and this is a little song I wrote called Take My Hand. I sure hope you like it.
Take my hand. It's the devil's music. I promised you. In my dreams, you're blowing me some kisses.
This Oscar season.
It ain't easy to walk to the top of a mountain. It's a long, hard walk, but I will walk hard.
I saw Walk Hard in the theater, laughed my butt off. I could have done without the full frontal male nudity in it, but man, I love this movie. Love the songs. I actually have the songs on my iPod. I'll listen to them in my car. I enjoyed this movie better than the movie it parodied, Walk the Line. Ryan, what are your thoughts on Walk Hard?
It's on my list here. I don't have, after top 5, I didn't rank them. But I thought it was like the first time I saw it, I was like, nope, too much dong. Not my thing. But I saw it again here and there, started watching it more and more, and now I have a good appreciation for it. For me, the thing that stands out for me is the Tim Meadows parts, where he walks in. What are you doing? This is marijuana. You don't want that. Well, what is it? This causes mind altering and has no side effects at all. Well, I think I do want it. That whole sequence that keeps getting more and more and more.
Yeah.
Just that was very very comedic and very.
It's like every cliche in every music biopic. Tim, your thoughts on Walk Hard?
Yeah, I liked Walk Hard. I liked Walk the Line too. Like I said, I had Walk the Line as number 6. But going back to the biopic thing, isn't that why they made this movie? Because when they checked into it, there were so many things that were not true in Walk the Line,
right?
That they parodied all of that. I mean, the whole thing with like his brother getting killed, that wasn't even true, was it?
I don't know.
There was something like
the wrong kid died.
Something big about it. Yeah, it was like, oh, okay. And I think that was part of it. Like he didn't have a brother or something.
Right.
I don't know.
Huh. I love it. Here's another clip of a movie that I absolutely love. This might be a little obscure. I don't know if many of our listeners have heard of this movie, but absolutely love this movie.
Guy Patterson is going to take the wonders from garage to greatness.
There's somebody I want you to meet. Mr. White is with Playtone Records.
That thing you do, it's snappy. We'd like to release it. Got the number 7 record in the country.
A story about the time in every life when the hopes you hold on to.
Very special, isn't she?
And the dreams you dream.
None of this would have happened if you hadn't joined the band.
Become that thing you do.
I believe this movie was written and directed by Tom Hanks. I believe he also wrote That Thing You Do, which is one of the catchiest songs I've ever heard. But I didn't know what to expect going in. I think I only saw it because Tom Hanks' name was on it, and absolutely loved this movie. Love the. There's another cliche in this movie where they hear themselves on the radio for the first time and they go crazy. You see that in so many movies. I actually experienced something similar to that. I had submitted some of my stand-up comedy to Dick Burton for a contest and was driving in my car when he played it live on the radio. It was really cool. It's such a neat moment. I felt like stopping on 75 and jumping out of my car and screaming. You guys remember That Thing You Do?
I do.
And?
It was all right.
Tim?
I cannot confirm nor deny if I have seen this or not.
Just don't remember it?
Honestly, I don't remember if I've seen it or not.
Song. Tim, here's one I thought was going to be on your list. Let's play clip.
We're in a tight spot.
Believe me, I got a plan. And I can get my wife back and we can get out of here.
Okay, I'm with you fellas.
Ain't you going to introduce us, Pete?
I've seen him first.
Them sirens loved him up and turned him into a horny toad.
Coen Brothers, Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? The reason I consider this a music movie is because they record that song and people are looking for them. And it becomes a big hit, and they do live stage performances.
Soggy Bottom Boys.
Yeah, and boy, I love this movie.
You know what? I probably would have had it on there. I just didn't even think about it. I mean, I have the soundtrack. They did a tour with the people that actually created the music. It was like Grand Ole Opry style, and they were actually at Pine Knob, and I went to that concert, and it was seriously one of the best concerts I've ever been to in my life. But I just didn't think about that when I was compiling my list. But yeah, I mean, this is one of my favorite Coen Brothers movies of all time.
I think my favorite George Clooney performance too. I thought it was great.
Me too, definitely.
Have you seen this, Ryan?
Put it on my list. Definitely on there. It's a great movie. Unexpected.
Yeah.
Nobody knew what to expect from this movie, but great movie.
Awesome. One last movie I want to throw out, and then you guys can throw out a few more.
I heard you in music class. You guys can really play. Why didn't anyone tell me?
I think it's time we started our new class project.
Rock band.
Can we tell our parents?
No!
The story of a man who gave a class the power to break the rules.
Who are they?
They're my band. I know they're kids, but they're awesome. Just listen.
And the inspiration
I pledge allegiance to the band.
to rock.
And if you want to be a teacher,
Jack Black. The School of Rock.
Love this movie. Probably my favorite Jack Black performance, right up there with Nacho Libre. Watched it again recently when we did our back to school special, and thought that Jack Black's performance was Oscar worthy. I thought he was absolutely phenomenal in School of Rock. Ryan?
It's on my list, but towards the bottom.
Mm-hmm.
That's it.
Tim?
I have this as my number 9. I wasn't expecting a whole lot out of it, and I ended up liking it a lot. It had a lot more heart to it than I thought it would by watching the trailers. So yeah, I got it as my number 9.
All right. So that's my top 10. Ryan, is there anything on your list you haven't thrown out that is worthy of discussing?
Oh, why, yes, Joe, I do. How much time do we got? Do I got to rapid fire these?
We got about 4 minutes.
So I should probably semi-rapid fire, maybe semi-automatic. So I'll just read them off, and then you guys can tell me which ones you want to talk about. So I got Ray. Thought that was a great Ray Charles movie. I thought Fox did a great job with that.
Oscar win for him?
Yep. Footloose, the original,
Mm-hmm.
not that crappy remake. Whiplash. Thought that was I wasn't expecting that. That was another one that kind of shocked me that I actually liked it so much. And there's an Oscar winner for you too.
Mm-hmm.
From Detroit. Airheads.
I got Airheads as my number 10. Yes, I do.
Airheads was amazing with Brendan Fraser and Adam Sandler.
The Lone Rangers?
Yes, absolutely. Like, all I can picture when you say that is Adam Sandler in his mask, naked.
There was a sound drop right there.
Chris Farley was in that too, right?
Think about it now.
He was the cop in that.
And then there's a lot of people in it.
Who was the third member of the band? Brandon Fraser, Adam Sandler. Who was the other one?
Was it Buscemi?
Man,
Steve
I
Buscemi?
totally forgot. It might have been.
Do you know the movie at all, Joe?
No, I haven't seen that one.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
They're a band, and they basically storm the radio station to get their record play, and they take everybody hostage.
Oh, okay.
And it's obviously
I'll have to check
a comedy.
Yeah.
So
kind of like a screwball-y comedy type
Yeah.
deal, but I'm pretty sure Chris Farley was the cop in it, or a cop, or a security,
it was
security guard, or
it was
something.
Officer Wilson.
Yeah, I mean it was a small part for him, but
I mean Judd Nelson's in it, Tony Montana. Who's Michael McKean? Michael Richards was in it. Ernie Hudson's in it.
Oh wow.
yeah.
All right. We got about 2 minutes. Tim, anything you want to throw out?
Let's see. I think I pretty much talked about everything except my number 7, Crazy Heart, a movie with Jeff Bridges, and
Now he won an Oscar for that, didn't he?
I don't know.
If he
I don't remember if
think
they did or not.
because
but,
he sang and performed his own.
Yes, he did.
Yeah, yeah.
And
Look at all these Oscars in these.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was basically about a country guy that was kind of washed up, and then he got back together with his old band, and then ultimately the movie was about alcoholism, and then how he like overcame it at the end. But yeah, I have that soundtrack too. That's a great soundtrack also. And then just some of my honorable mentions: Decline of Western Civilization, American Hardcore, La Bamba.
Oh yeah.
And Sid and Nancy, and Singles.
All right.
I got one more to throw out there since we're talking Oscars. Hustle and Flow.
Hustle and Flow. All right.
Won the Oscar for It's Hard Out Here for a Pimp.
Oh, that's right.
Oh, yeah.
I thought one of you guys would throw out like Empire Records or anything. That have anything to do with music?
I mean, he worked at a record store.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They had some like pretend 80s heartthrob.
Yeah, but it wasn't.
A lot of people love it. I didn't love it.
Yeah, it was okay.
Was
But
Liv Tyler in that?
Yes.
Yes.
Because she was in High Fidelity.
Joey
as
Lauren
well.
Adams was in that.
Okay.
Liv Tyler was also in High Fidelity?
I thought she was.
No.
I don't
Oh,
think so.
no, you know what I'm thinking? I'm thinking of that Thing You Do. She was in That Thing You Do.
Okay.
Coming back to your movies. I see how it is.
Yeah. All right. Great talk, guys. Get out there, see those movies we talked about. Go to the theater, see A Star is Born, see Bohemian Rhapsody. I might go see that again. I liked it so much.
Check out Airheads.
That's right. Thanks for
And
listening.
a band called Death.